The meaning. Culture refers to a certain personal characteristic of an individual, patterns of learned and shared behavior, and beliefs of a particular social, ethnic, or age group. Culture defines the beliefs, behaviors, objects, and other characteristics shared by groups of people. Sometimes, an individual is described as a highly cultured person, meaning that the person in question has certain features, such as his speech, manner, and taste for literature, music, or painting, which distinguish him from others. However, this is not the sense in which the word culture is used and understood in social science. Sometimes culture is used in popular discourse to refer to a celebration or an evening of entertainment, as when one speaks of a culture show. In this sense, culture is identified with aesthetics or the fine arts such as dance, music, or drama. Culture has been defined in numbers of ways. One of the most comprehensive definitions of the term culture was provided by the British anthropologist Edward Tylor. He defined culture as that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by a man as a member of society. Characteristics of culture. Number 1. Learned behavior. Not all behavior is learned, but most of it is learned. Sometimes, the terms conscious learning and unconscious learning are used to distinguish the learning. Combing one's hair, standing in line, telling jokes, criticizing the president, and going to the movie all constitutes behavior which had to be learned. Some behavior is obvious. People can be seen going to football games, eating with forks, or driving automobiles. Some behavior who can be seen by the eye is called overt behavior. Overt behavior are those which are directly observable, such as talking, running, scratching, or blinking. Other behavior is less visible, and it's called covert behavior. Covert behavior are those which go inside the skin. Such activity as planning tomorrow work, feeling hatred for an enemy are behaviors too. But both of these behavior, of course, can be learned. Number 2. Culture is abstract. It is the way of thinking, feeling, believing, and behaving. There are degrees of visibility of cultural behavior, ranging from the regularized activities of persons to their internal reasons for so doing. In other words, we cannot see culture as see or such, we can only see human behavior. This behavior occurs in regular pattern fashion and is called culture. Number 3. Culture is a pattern of learned behavior. It depends upon some particular behavior of someone else. Culture helps in understanding and predicting the human behavior, and also it provides channel of interaction of individual within the group. It defines the pattern of behavior for individuals so that he can act according to the behavior pattern described and defined by the culture. The point is that, as a general rule, behaviors are somewhat integrated or organized with related behaviors of other persons. Number 4. Culture is the products of behavior. Human behavior is the result of behavior. As the persons behave, there acquires changes in him. He acquires the ability to swim, to feel hatred towards someone, or to sympathize with someone. The experience of other people are impressed on one as he grows up, and also many of his traits and abilities have grown out of his own past behaviors. Number 5. Culture includes attitudes, values, and knowledge. Your differences, however, may be cultural. It is easy to overestimate the uniqueness of one's own attitudes and ideas. When there is agreement with other people, it is largely unnoticed. But when there is disagreement or difference, one is usually conscious of it. There is a widespread error in thinking of many people who tend to regard the ideas, attitudes, and notions which they have as their own. Number 6. Culture also includes material objects. Men were behaving when they made these things. To make these objects, it required numerous and various skills which human beings gradually built up through the ages. Man merely modified their form, changed them from a state in which they were to the state in which he now uses them. For example, the chair was first a tree, which man surely did not make. But the chair is more than trees, and the jet airplanes is more than an iron ore and a fort. Number 7. Culture is shared by the members of society. The patterns of learned behavior and the results of behavior are possessed not by one or few persons, but usually by a large proportion. Person may share some part of the cultural unequally. To some persons, Christianity is the all-important. To others, it is less preoccupying important. Among the Christians, there are Catholic and Protestants, liberal or conversation. The point to our discussion is not that culture or any part of it shred identically, but that it is shared by the members of society to a sufficient extent. Number 8. Culture is superorganic. Culture is somehow superior to a nature. The word superorganic is useful when it applies that what may be quite a different phenomenon from a cultural point of view. For example, a tree means different things to a botanist who studies it. The old woman who uses its shade in the late summer afternoon, and young lovers who carve their initials in its trunk. The same physical objects and physical characteristics, in other words, may constitute a variety of quite different cultural objects and cultural characteristics. So, culture is it is super organic. Number 9. Culture is pervasive. It is pervasive because it touches every aspect of life. Culture is like an individual, more or less consistent pattern of thoughts and action. The pervasiveness of a culture is manifest in two ways. First, culture provides an unquestioned context within which individual action and response take place. Not only emotional action, but relational actions are governed by cultural norms. The second one is that Culture pervades social activities and institutions. Number 10. Culture is a way of life. Culture means simply the way of life of people of their design for living. Clark Hahn and Kelly defines it in his sense that a culture is a historical derived system of explicit and implicit design for living. Explicit culture refers to similarities in word and action, which can be directly observed. And for example for that is that adolescents' cultural behavior can be generalized from regularities in dress, mannerism, and conversation, while the implicit culture exists in abstract forms which are not quite obvious. Number 11. Culture is a human product. Culture does not do anything of its own. Culture is not a force, operating by itself and independent of a human actors. Culture is a creation of society and interaction and depends for its existence upon the continuance of society. Is that not cause the individual to act in a particular way, nor does it make the normal individual into a maladjusted one. Culture, in short, is a human product. It is not independently owned or endowed with life. Number 12. Culture is idealistic. Sum total of the ideal patterns and norms of behavior of a group. Culture consists of the intellectual, artistic, and social ideals and institutions which the member of the society profess and to which they strive to conform. Culture embodies the ideas and norms of a group. Number 13. Culture is transmitted among members of society. The cultural ways are learned by persons from persons, which mean it can be handed down by one's elders, by parents, teachers, and other people. Other cultural behavior are handed up to elders. For example, the styles of dress, political views, and the use of recent labor-saving devices. One does not acquire a behavior pattern spontaneously. He learns it. That means that someone teaches him and he learns. Much of the learning process, both from the teacher and the learning, is quite unconscious and unintentional or accidental. Number 14. Culture is continually changing. They are changing even though not obviously so. Culture is made up of customs, attitudes, and beliefs that are unique to each group of people. New philosophical ideas and technological advances can lead to cultural change. Cultural change can also occur through diffusion when contact with other cultures and ideas are transferred. Some societies at some times can change slowly, and hence in comparison to other societies seem not to be changing at all. But they are changing. They are not just obviously so. Number 15. Culture is variable. Culture varies from group to group within the same community. We can address it in 8 cultural variables. First, human nature, time, action, communication, space, power, individualism or collectivism, and competitiveness or cooperativeness. These major variables offer a simple frame of references for examining culture and understanding its major characteristic. There are subcultures within a culture, cluster of patterns which are both related to general culture of the society and yet distinguishable from it and called subcultures. Number 16. Culture is an integrated system. Culture possesses an order and system, the various parts of a culture being interconnected. It is a form of a cultural exchange in which one group assumes the beliefs, practices, and rituals of another group without sacrificing the characteristic of its own culture. It usually refers to several cultures coming together to form a new one. Number 17. Language is the chief vehicle of culture. Man lives not only in the present, but also in the past and future. Although culture is transmitted in a variety of ways, language is one of the most important vehicles for perpetuating cultural patterns. He is a man who can able to do this because he possesses language which transmit to him what was learned in the past and enables him to transfer the accumulated wisdom to the next generation. A specialized language pattern serves as a common bond to the members of a particular group or a subculture. Functions of culture. Among all groups of people, we find widely shared beliefs, norms, values, and preferences. Since culture seems to be a universal human phenomenon, it occurs naturally to wonder whether culture corresponds to any universal human needs. Culture has certain function for both individual and society. Here are the following important functions of culture. Number 1, culture defines situations. Number 2, culture defines attitudes, values, and goals. Number 3, culture defines myths, legends, and the supernatural. And number 4, culture provides behavior patterns. Number 1, culture defines situations. Each culture has many subtle cues, which define each situation. Each society has its insults and fighting words. It reveals whether one should prepare to fight, run, laugh, or make love. For example, someone is approaching you with right hand outstretched at waist level. What does this mean? He wishes to shake hands in friendly greeting and perfectly obvious. That is to anyone familiar with our culture. But in other place or time, the outstretched hand might mean hostility or warning. One does not know what to do in a situation until he was defined the situation. The other example for this is laughing at the wrong place. A person who moves from a society or who moves from one society and another will spend many years misreading the cues. Number 2, culture defines attitudes, values, and goals. Each person learns in his culture what is good, true, and beautiful. Attitude are tendencies to feel and act in certain ways. Values are measure of goodness or desirability. So for example, we value a private property, government, and many other things and experiences. Goals are those attainments which our values define as worthy. For example, winning the race. By approving certain goals and ridiculing others, the culture channel individual ambitions. In these ways, culture determines the goal of life. Number 3. Culture defines myths, legends, and the supernatural. They inspire, reinforce effort and sacrifice, and bring comfort in bereavement. Whether they are true is sociologically unimportant. Ghosts are real to people who believe in them and who act upon this belief. Myths and legends are powerful forces in a group behavior. Culture provides the individual with a ready-made view of the universe. The individual does not have to select, but is trained in Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, or some other religious tradition. This tradition gives answer for the major or things imponderable of life. The fortunes the individual to meet life crisis. Number 4. Culture provides behavior patterns. A ready-made set of patterns knows the procedure defined by his culture. If men use culture to advance their purposes, it seems clear also that a culture imposes limits on human and activities. The need for order calls forth another function of culture, that of so directing behavior that disorderly behavior is restricted and orderly behavior is promoted. A society without rules or norms to define right and wrong behavior would be very much like a heavily traveled street without traffic signs or any understood rules for meeting and passing vehicles. Chaos would be the result in either case. Culture and society. One must always keep in mind the interdependence and the reciprocal relationship between culture and society. Each is distinguishable concept in which the pattern and the organization of the whole is more important than any of the components parts. A society cannot exist apart from culture. A society is always made of persons and their groupings. People carry and transmit culture, but they are not culture. No culture can exist except as it is embodied in a society of men. No society can operate without cultural directives. Like matter and energy, like mind and body, they are interdependent and interacting, yet express different aspects of human situation.